Well, 10 out of 10 bats were so excited to hear about our new live guest for tonight, the one and only Nick Baker.
Not the poodle.
Not the poodle, not yet.
And 8 out of 10 cats were utterly flabbergasted to learn that there's 80 species or more water fleas.
That's very good,
That's
very
good,
good,
isn't it?
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, 7 out of 10 bats were fascinated to learn that female American green tree frogs inflate their lungs to lessen the sound of other species' mating calls.
I thought you were breathing in there for a moment. There we go. And 2 out of 10 cats were amazed to know that the biggest biomass of any insects in our British ponds are midges.
Hello! Hi, and welcome to the second ever episode of 8 out of 10 bats. Coming to you, of course, live on YouTube from the Dundregan Rewilding Centre here in the Highlands of Scotland.
It's been pretty amazing so far already, hasn't it?
It's been good.
Thank you so much to everyone who's already sent in photos and footage and all your amazing wildlife encounters. We've been absolutely loving looking through them. But there was one that was, I mean, just mind-blowing. So we had to make it our mug quiz. Now, this has come in from Ash Whiffin. Get a look at this. She has, I think, pretty aptly named it Tree Snot.
It's good, isn't it?
Snot.
I like how clear it is. I mean, you can see right through, although there is a bit of texture in there.
Very snot-like, isn't
Yeah,
it? A little bit
snotty
of textured
tree.
snot.
Needs a tissue.
So, I mean, sadly, it's not actually tree snot, but we want to know from you guys, what do you think it is? What do you think it is? That is our competition to win, of course, our second of these glorious 8 out of 10 bat mugs, okay? So get your answers in quickly. What do you think it is? The first person to get it right that will be seen by our social team will be the winner. Okay, so get fast, get writing those answers quickly. And please do continue sending in your content. Please continue sending in those photos, those videos. We love seeing them. Please either use the hashtag 8 out of 10 bats or you can find the email them to in the chat. We look forward to seeing them.
It's good, isn't it?
Yeah,
but
but
it's not
don't.
just us.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
But it's not only you guys that we are setting challenges to. We've also been set our own challenge to help us get familiar with the wildlife of Dundregan. We've been very kindly lent some camera traps from Nature Spy. And we've been set a challenge by James Stevens, our wonderful camera operator who you'll meet later. And he set us the challenge of camera trapping the best species around Dundregan. So we've set them up earlier on yesterday, and we're going to wait and see who gets the best species on Friday. They're not Friday, Thursday. Sorry, you're only getting 4 days of us. Sorry, Thursday. Thursday will reveal who will have the best species.
We're all a little bit competitive, so there's been a lot of bantering behind the scenes. What are you going for? Go on.
I'm keeping my cards close to my chest.
What do you mean?
What are you talking about? I'm not telling you.
Well,
I found a great spot.
I'm going to go for a woodlouse.
I think I'm going to win.
Am I?
No
or am I
contest.
not? Mind games. You'll never know. Now, of course, we always do Skull of the Day here on 8 out of 10 bats. And earlier on, Chris posted a photograph onto Twitter. Now, it is of this animal with this skull here. Now, it is a fantastic looking skull. It's one of the most beautiful bits of natural architecture, I think. What you'll notice, obviously, is these fangs here that can reach between 1 or 2 inches in length, obviously all the way going up into the root. But I can tell you it's a non-native animal. And it got escaped really from Whipsnade in 1929. And now the UK holds 10% of this species population.
Really?
It does. So shall we reveal the answer?
I think we probably have to.
It is, of course, the Chinese water deer. What an amazing skull that is, huh?
Yeah, that is.
What are you doing?
What?
Just take care of that. Thank you very much. Bit of a precious specimen.
You can't
I guess
help
he
yourself.
likes it. I guess he likes it.
Yeah, just to say the least, I reckon.
Well, at least we have the answer now, I suppose, even if we don't have the skull anymore. But, never mind. So we have our next quiz to go to. We have, of course, our word of the day. So let's hear from Susie what our word today is.
Here's my word of the day, teaser. What is a creature doing if it is nidificating?
I have to make sure. I have to check this one to make sure I get it right. Nidificating. I didn't know the one yesterday, and I have to admit I've not really got much of a clue on this one either.
No, it's a really tricky word. I mean, my intuition, because of the defecating bit, was something about poo.
I mean, it is the first thing that my mind goes to as well. So maybe, you know, 2 heads are better than one, maybe.
But she did get us yesterday, and actually loads of people got it right yesterday's one about
they did.
urchins. So perhaps I don't know. We'll have to find out a little bit later on about what that answer is from Susie. Now, a very important announcement. Later on in the show, 8 out of 10 bats will be interrupted for a party political broadcast. So you'll have to wait and see what that is all about. But before we get into that, we really need to get into the wildlife. And one of my favourite all-time birds is the osprey. It's sleek, it's sexy, it's a fish hunting machine. There it is, looking really regal. Now, this bird was wiped into extinction due to persecution, but they naturally recolonised Lochgarten in 1955, which was very exciting and very famous. And since that point, there's been a major reintroduction project going, of course, to Wales, going to Rutland Water, and then more recently to the south of the UK. And the reason for this reintroduction is all to do with natal philopatry, which basically means that the birds are really loyal to the grounds in which they are hatched and raised themselves. So they stay in one area, so sometimes they need a helping hand with distribution. And obviously, we can't talk about ospreys without talking about the famous CJ7 and 022. All members of SIBC will, of course, remember this famous pair.
Yeah, I love them too. I love them too.
We love them a lot. But to give us a bit of an update on how the pair are getting on and what they got up to this year is the Birds of Poole Harbour team featuring Liv Cooper.
Down here in Dorset, it's been another spectacular season for the Poole Harbour Osprey project, seeing the return of breeding male 022 and female CJ7 as they return for the second time to breed. Now, being the only osprey pair in the whole of the south, they've got a lot of weight on their shoulders, and we've been live streaming the nest online for everyone to be able to review. But the season's been full of highs and lows with soap-like drama filling our screens, and we'd like to recap the year so that you're able to see the journey that we've come on. So the season started back on the 26th of March when male osprey 022 landed back on the nest after his long migration, most likely from a country in West Africa. But what happened next was quite unexpected. He was joined by a female on the nest that was not CJ7. The reason we could tell this was firstly because she had completely different markings, but secondly was that she was unringed. Most ospreys in the UK are ringed with the BTO ringing scheme, which means that they get code names like 022 or CJ7 at a young age while they're in the nest. But this female is most likely to be from a nest in Scotland, which is inaccessible or unmonitored. So now 022 is faced with a difficult choice. Should he patiently await the return of CJ7 and breed with her like he did last year, or should he hedge his bets just in case CJ7 didn't return and try his luck with this new female instead? Well, 022 decided to keep building up the nest and make sure it was repaired from all the damage over winter, but he did decide to try his luck with this new female. So the pair mated and bonded, and she was now being nicknamed Jolene online. CJ7 must have sensed this unsavoury behaviour because she'd returned back to the nest just a few days later, only to be greeted by 022 in a very undignified manner. However, when dawn rose, CJ7 was also faced with the fact that there was another female on the nest, and she was still mating with 022. Over the course of the next few hours, the three stayed together on the nest, but it wasn't long before CJ7 stamped her authority and made sure that the young female was ousted. The pair quickly slipped back into their old routine, rebuilding the nest and courting one another as they had back in 2022. And it wasn't long before 3 eggs were laid in the nest. But this year, unfortunately, it wasn't just sticks that were being brought in to line the nest. The pair were also bringing in large pieces of black plastic and embedding it deep within the nest. Fortunately, some of this plastic was expertly removed by the pair, some of it buried deeper into the nest, and we also went and spoke to local landowners to make sure no more of this plastic was escaping into the landscape. We were very lucky that actually all 3 chicks hatched between the end of May and early June, and none of them were affected by the plastic. At this stage they were so small that they found it difficult to hold up their own heads, but fortunately male 022 redeemed himself for his behaviour earlier in the season, bringing in up to 6 fish a day to feed the young chicks. With this huge amount of fish being delivered, it's only a matter of time before the young chicks start to lose their downy feathers and start to resemble the adult ospreys more closely. But they are then faced with difficult threats. The challenges of really hot weather, where the adults have to shade them from the sun, but also torrential downpours where they get completely soaked through. At about 5 weeks old in early July, the 3 chicks got ringed by a member of our team, and they were ringed 5H3, 5H4 and 5H5, with 2 males and 1 female in the nest, the female being 5H5. The biggest aim for the chicks over the next few weeks is to build up enough strength in their muscles, in their wings, to be able to fledge, and that happens between 7 and 8 weeks of age. Of course, this does lead to some heart-in-the-mouth moments through the season where the chicks are helicoptering off the screen to be able to practice their flight before dropping down onto the nest, where they're not quite ready to make the leap. But in the middle of July, 5H3 was the first chick to take his flight off the nest, shortly followed by 5H4 and 5H5 just a few days later. Now, when the chicks are this size, it feels as though they're not so vulnerable anymore, but looking back to 2022, we still face difficulties at this time of the season. Just 1 week after fledging, young female 5H2 last year was taken off the nest by a goshawk that was only the same age as her, and so even after fledging, these chicks are at risk. CJ7 and 022 were clearly more prepared for these potential threats this year, as we were regularly visited by goshawk at the nest site. But the pair quickly chased off any goshawks that came even close to the nest, and so, very fortunately, at the end of August, all 3 chicks left safely on migration. With all the chicks having left on migration, all we can now do is wait for next year for CJ7 and 022 to return back to their nest site. And perhaps even in 2025, we may see the return of 5H3, 5H4 and 5H5 back to Poole Harbour to maybe look to breed for themselves.
That was amazing, wasn't it?
So good. Such beautiful birds. Absolutely amazing.
I love an osprey. Thank you so much to Liv and, of course, the rest of the team at Birds of Poole Harbour, not only for sharing that film with us, but for doing such incredible work to bring ospreys back to the south of England. I mean, I feel quite lucky. I live in Scotland. You know, ospreys are now fairly widespread across the country. You can see them in lots of places, but you know, we want to see that across the whole of the UK. I mean, ospreys are the second most common bird of prey across the world.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, and they're not, and there's not enough of them here in the UK. We need more. So thank you so much to Liv and the team for that. And I feel so happy to see these 3 chicks fledge, because I spent quite a lot of time watching them earlier on this year. I saw the chicks hatch. I saw them get their first feed. I saw them grow, and I'm so pleased to see them fledge. I grew really quite attached to them, even when they went through their kind of little velociraptor from Jurassic Park phase. Yeah. It was when they're all dark and they've got the orange eyes. I mean, they're a little bit scary, but no, I'm so pleased to see them doing well. And it's so exciting to think of where they'll go as well. You know, maybe they'll stay in Poole. I mean, there's some incredible other birds down in Poole already with, you know, some other projects. So we've obviously got the white-tailed eagles, you know, with the Roy Dennis Foundation. Again, another amazing species in the south. And then, of course, we've got the RSPB helping to return spoonbills. I mean, you know, it's a fantastic place to be for bird life, isn't it, down there?
So much good stuff. And of course, not just that, they've got goshawks.
Of course. How can I forget?
I couldn't help but notice. I'm wearing my goshawk pin badge on me. There we are, representing goshawks at all times.
Absolutely.
And of course, the ospreys escaped the goshawks this year, but last year they weren't quite as lucky. So just because we can, let's have another look at that clip. So here's the goshawk just checking out. Looks like a juvenile there, quite a rusty brown individual. Look at that, just checking out the nest, thinking, what can I take on? What can I take on?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So it did that for quite most of the summer, didn't it? The goshawk kind of hung around, and, you know, it looked like things were going to be okay. You know, the osprey chicks had actually fledged, and then this happened. Oh God. Well, I think this was the most heartbreaking part of it. The chicks had fledged. They had left the nest, and they just came back to the nest to rest every now and again.
Happened.
And that was when it took. I mean, look at the power of that goshawk. I mean, it's unbelievable. I can see why you've got the obsession.
Exactly.
I mean, I would have never believed that they could take out what to me looks like a fully grown osprey.
I know,
and then
it's unbelievable.
I can't believe it. It really is so impressive.
This is what we do on 8 out of 10 Bats, convert people to love goshawks as much as I do.
I mean, you've converted me.
Yeah, but amazing to see it taking that osprey there. And I would not want to be a wood pigeon, a squirrel, or indeed an osprey now. But I absolutely love the power and the action that goshawks bring to all of our lives, but especially mine. Now, Megan, I've got a present for you.
Oh yeah, what have you got?
This is a goshawk feather.
Oh, I like that.
What do you think about that for my own collection?
It's very sweet, isn't it? It's quite small though, Indy.
Okay.
It's a little bit small. I mean, it's nice. It's a breast feather, obviously.
Yes, it is.
You can tell kind of the curve there, can't you, in the fluffiness. But I'm not.
What are you going to raise me?
I don't mean to outdo you, right? But I'm just gonna bring this big thing over, put it side by side.
That's not fair.
I mean, I don't mean to feel smug, but I feel a little bit smug right now. This is, of course, the feather of a white-tailed eagle. It's one of my prized possessions. And I know goshawks are small kind of velociraptors, if you want. They're such impressive predators. But white-tailed eagles are pretty good as well. Pretty good too.
That is... Okay, right, I'm going to put this back in my pocket.
Put it away calmly. Now, of course, we are stood here at our wildlife cache. It's full of all kinds of treasures. And today, we're going to focus a little bit on feathers. Because you might think feathers evolved in order to enable birds to fly. And that is certainly their use now. But actually, University of Bristol did a study which looked at the original feathers, and it dates back to 250 million years ago when feathers were growing on dinosaurs. And at that point, feathers kept in the warmth, they kept them nice and, toasty, but also a little bit of display as well. Some of the feathers might have had coloration on, hard to tell. Of course, you have to be a very skilled paleontologist to figure that out. And now it's all about flight in birds.
Absolutely, but of course when collecting feathers, which you can do all year round, it's very, very important that we do so with care, especially with the rise of avian influenza, otherwise known as bird flu. So if you are collecting feathers, make sure you at least wear gloves or wash the feathers when you take them back to your house. And definitely never, ever, ever take feathers from a dead bird.
No, very good point. It's very serious, both for human health as well as wildlife health too. But why do we pick up feathers on the ground? Well, it's because every year, every bird will molt all of its feathers, regrow new ones to make it look nice and fresh for the next breeding season. This is obviously something they want to do to impress mates when the time comes. So they need to get rid of all the kind of rusty, damp, torn bits that have got them through a really difficult season. And earlier on we were sent in this photograph of a juvenile robin. Now this one probably hasn't had its first breeding season yet, or it definitely hasn't, and it is just getting its adult plumage. So it's just molting all of those young feathers and gaining that beautiful orange breast that we all know robins have.
Amazing. Now, all of us here consider ourselves, I would say, feather collector nerds. So this inspired a little very, very serious game of feather poker. So gather around, guys.
Come on in.
Heard
Right.
mention of a game.
Who's going to go first
Do you
then?
want to do your hand first, Chris?
Well, I've got a very special hand here. I think I've got the royal flush just to start off. Yes. A Drake mandarin sail feather. Look at it glistening. Look at the iridescence on the front of it, the orange on the back. Look at the extraordinary shape of the Drake mandarin sail feather. Top that.
Okay, that is quite nice. That is quite nice. Christina, you going to go next?
I see you and I raise you, one of the most amazing birds in the UK, the bittern. The bittern.
Bittern's feather.
Look at that.
Not
Hold up.
only is the feather absolutely gorgeous, I mean, the fact that we even have one when they're so rare, I mean, that's, I can't, come on.
It is pretty nice, isn't it?
It is lovely,
Not
isn't
so bad, not so bad. Okay, shall I go next?
Yeah,
Well,
I think so.
one of the rarest animals in Britain. This is the tail feather of a male capercaillie that makes it their home here, of course, in Scotland. Over to you, Indy.
Oh dear, well, this is quite intimidating. I bring you a much smaller feather, but I think just as amazing. This.
What
is that? No
Oh
laughing.
my goodness me,
No
Andy.
laughing.
Is
First
that
a
it?
tiny goshawk feather, and now
I can
this.
see it. Where is it?
This is the feather of a wryneck.
Oh.
Wryneck feather.
Sorry, one
Pretty
second.
cool.
I'm just getting my
Pretty
binoculars
cool,
out.
Pretty cool. I tell you what, like, to decide who's laid the winning hand in terms of a feather here, we're going to hand it over to you. You can conduct a little poll in the chat. So we'll extol the virtues of our individual feathers. You decide which is the best one. I'll start. Male mandarin sail feather. Come on. What an extraordinary element of anatomy this is. Designed, of course, for sexual selection. The males have two of these on their backs and they erect them when they are displaying, impressing the females. Now, you might think, therefore, that the male mandarin might be a very promiscuous bird, but they're not. They're monogamous. And in fact, in their native China, ones here in the UK are all introduced, of course, they are renowned for being symbols of being trustworthy because they're monogamous birds. So there we are, the Drake mandarin sail feather.
Beautiful, very nice.
Okay, right. I see that. I mean, the thing is, though, it's a bit flashy. It's a bit overkill. It's a bit try too hard, you know? If we look at this bittern, though, I mean, it doesn't need to try too hard because it's already... it's naturally very beautiful. And, you know, this helps it basically disappear. You know, how many people have really actually seen a bittern? They are so cryptic. They live in these deep reed beds, and you can see, I mean, the coloration is perfect for what those reed beds always look like, those colours that you see in those reed beds. And, you know, the bittern has had to fight against some pretty hard goings on. You know, they were pretty much extinct in the UK, and they've now really come back. Last year, 228 booming male
that's good,
bitterns.
Nice.
That's a record, record.
Well, that's booming bitterns, but that's pretty boring. Come on, Beast, try and top that then.
Well, mine is a bit about sexual selection again. Of course, males have these fan tail feathers, and they erect them when they are trying to attract mates. And they do so in a lek where they gather lots of females. They stand on the same patch over generations, and they try and call in the females with the fan, trying to be very impressive. And if this doesn't get me a few points on the voting system, I'm also going to do an impression of the male.
Oh,
Are you ready? This is what they sound like, right? They do some clucking. Ready?
It's not bad, actually. I didn't know you could mimic a male capercaillie. What have you been doing with your spare time?
I'm filled with lots of talents, I can tell you.
Okay, right, come on then, Indy. Last chance.
Wrynecks fly. This
Yeah,
is probably from somewhere on the bird. No, again, like Christina's bitten feather, they are very, very camouflaged bird, and they basically feed on the ground, feeding on ants and anything kind of small beetles, anything they can find scuttling around on the ground. And from above, they need to be very camouflaged to any predators that might be seeing them. So again, very much to do with camouflage. And look at the shades of brown. Come on, please.
The shades
please
of
love
brown.
The Wryneck. The shades of brown.
I'm in
50
your
shades of brown. Versus this.
None of them are poo brown. They're all lovely browns.
I am very. I have to say that, you know, it might be small and brown, but I am quite covetous of your Wryneck feather.
Thank you.
Yeah, it is
Okay,
nice.
right,
We're only
come on
being
then.
mean about it because we're quite envious about it. Right, so who is the winner then?
Who's the winner?
Oh, Chris Mandarin.
Da 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 da.
All show and no substance.
You're such a show-off.
Oh, that's so beautiful, isn't it? And it's all mine.
Oh dear, I'm going to take us away from this. I'm going to move away from feathers and very quickly to the botanical world with Leif Sweden as he takes us through a walk through a very, very soggy Atlantic rainforest looking for unappreciated plants.
I get really, really excited about autumn. The colours of the trees as they molt, the smell of the air, the angle of the light. There's just so much beauty to look forward to. But the thing that excites me the most is going out to look for mosses and liverworts. These little plants love this time of year. It's their time to shine when everything's just a bit soggy and damp. I've actually ignored them for most of my life. They kind of seemed too difficult, too similar to one another, and I got distracted by the plants that had flowers. But in the last few years, I've spent the autumns and the winters looking closely at them, and oh my goodness, they're amazing. There are just these entire worlds that I had no idea existed. My name's Leif, I'm a botanist, and I'm on a mission to open people's eyes to the miniature worlds of mosses and liverworts. This is my favourite bit of temperate rainforest, tucked along the shoreline on the west coast of Scotland. It's one of the most peaceful places I know, and it's where I've been teaching myself about bryophytes. Temperate rainforests are really exciting places to look for these plants because they're soggy, they're mild, they're humid all year round, which is exactly what these plants love. So I'm really, really looking forward to going for a wander and seeing what I can find. Oh, beautiful. Oh, look at this, look at this. This is a really lovely species called straggling pouchwort. And it's a leafy liverwort that likes to grow in these sort of layered colonies on vertical surfaces like this rock face. And I just love the way that the light passes through the leaves, the symmetry of the whole thing, and how all the leaf tips are really sort of rounded at the edge. Liverworts are a group of small spore-producing plants that are really, really closely related to mosses. And in this woodland, they are dripping off of every single tree trunk, every branch, every rock and boulder, all the way down to the sea. So I've just found a really, really cool one. It's called lobster tail liverwort, and it's one of my all-time favourite species. It's this sort of bright lime green colour, and it's just growing all the way up the tree trunk here. And it is so beautiful. I mean, just look closely at it. You've got this sort of rounded back where the leaves are folded over the top. And then at the end of each plant, it's split into sort of 2 or 3, exactly like a lobster's tail. How amazing is that? One of the things I love about these plants is their adaptability. So because most plants have flowers and seeds and internal plumbing systems, then most people dismiss bryophytes as being primitive, which I think is completely the wrong way of looking at it, because these liverworts here are using their little root-like structures to grab onto the tree trunk, and they're taking water directly out of the air through their leaves. So what this means is that mosses and liverworts aren't limited to the ground like most plants are. They can climb up this tree trunk, get great access to light, and it really expands the amount of available space that they have to grow in, as well as reducing competition from those bigger, thirstier plants for water. Some of them do grow on the ground though, and they've had to come up with ways of competing with other plants. A really good example are the bog mosses, or the sphagnums. They like to grow in acidic soil, so what they do is they pump out compounds into their surroundings to make it more acidic, not only reducing competition from plants that don't like those conditions, but also creating a whole load of habitat for their own offspring. This one just down here is blunt-leaved bog moss, Sphagnum palustri, and it's just beautiful. Look at those succulent fat leaves. They look so juicy. I could look at these all day. As well as liking acidic conditions, these plants need it to be wet, and I'm talking super soggy. But again, they create these conditions for themselves. So they have these specialized cells that just soak up water, meaning sphagnums are literally like botanical sponges. But the amazing thing is that each plant can hold up to 20 times its own weight in water, meaning that they're really good at slowing down the movement of water across landscapes, regulating our water cycles, and reducing flooding. There's this whole world of wonder out there, just waiting to be discovered, and all it requires of us is to slow down and notice. And you know, we might not all have temperate rainforests on our doorsteps, but these plants grow everywhere. So next time you see some, take the time to have a close look. It might just be the best thing you ever do.
That was just stunning, wasn't it?
I know, he's so good, isn't he?
He
So
is.
good. You should follow him on Instagram, and obviously the tag will be in the chat now. He's posted some incredible things. The other day he was down on his hands and knees in the middle of a civic square, probing around in a tiny crack between the stones. He was approached by a policeman, I understand, getting some amazing photographs of tiny plants that were growing there.
That is brave, that is brave. I love some of the names of the plants. I mean, straggling pouchwort, lobster tail liverwort is brilliant. But it's so important to take the time to appreciate these small things, isn't it? The kind of small, detailed little bits of nature that we can appreciate when we're out and about, because, you know, not only do they underpin, you know, everything, you know, we need those small things, they're just beautiful. I mean, they're like works of art.
Certainly worth a second look, and some of you have been taking a second look without any doubt, because you've been sending us in some photographs, and we've got this one of some sphagnum moss. Now just look at this, absolutely beautiful colours, remarkable patterning there. That's absolutely superb. Worth getting down on your hands and knees and focusing in on these amazing plants. Stunning stuff.
They really are, aren't they? And I can understand it must feel quite intimidating for people if they want to try and understand mosses and start to identify them, because they do look quite similar a lot of the time. But I'm sure you've probably come across these, Chris, before in your time. There are a range of wonderful guides out there produced by the Field Studies Council, who I actually used to work for.
Did you?
I did. I had a wonderful time.
I like the Field Studies Council very much.
They are an environmental education charity, and they create these publications, and this is one is for their sphagnum mosses, and it's got On one side, it's got these amazing kind of ID guides, you know, you look at the colours, it gives you features on, you know, how to identify them, what the different kind of fronds and things look like. But then of course on the other side, you've got all this amazing information about the physiology of mosses, about, you know, their conservation status, all the amazing functions they provide to the environment, you know, they're absolutely brilliant. I really love these, and you know, a lot smaller and easier to carry about with you than a big book.
I've got to brag now, actually.
Oh,
well, I claim, I'm not entirely sure it's true, but I claim to have the full set of those.
Ah, I knew you'd be familiar with them.
Yes, but I keep them in my car. I've got a whole load more here. Look, these are for lichens, which are another group of organisms that are often very much overlooked. And the reason I like these is that they're waterproof, they're cheap, and they do them for all of the things that you don't normally get in field guides. Look at this. I mean, you can get books like this. Here's a more complete book, this one here, which is a guide to mosses, for instance. And of course, inside, it's pretty easy to identify them. But the field studies guides, fold out things, can't beat them. Absolutely sensational.
They are great, they are great. And it's funny you should bring up lichens, actually, because that's something that really drew my attention when I've been exploring Dundragon. It's everywhere, it's just dripping with lichens. It's absolutely incredible. We've got some lovely images here. I mean, just look at all of that. Now, quite a lot of what we're seeing around Dundragon are the Usnea species. They're very bushy, they're that lovely pale green colour. They're often called beard lichens. I'm sure you can kind of see why. And, you know, the lovely thing with them is that they're a sign of really clean, healthy air. And, you know, on that note, you know, I'm a big advocate for using all your senses when exploring nature.
Indeed.
Know. And I've got a lovely collection of these lichens here for you to have a look at, you know, and I'm looking at them.
Well, they feel great,
I'm
don't they?
touching them, yeah. I maybe won't taste them, but we've got another sense, haven't we?
Go on.
Get your nose in that. Get your nose in that.
Oh, that smells so
It's good, isn't it? You know, you would think looking at it, it'd be a kind of damp, you know, maybe a little bit mouldy smell, but it almost symbolises what they symbolise. You know, they are fresh, they are clean.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful smell.
It is, and it's a very distinct aroma. It's not just the smell of, as you say, dry algal plant material. It has a distinct odour. If only we could bottle that for odour 8 out of 10 bats. I'm sure we could make millions in the perfume market.
I think
Superb stuff.
fun
And
series
we're going to stick with plants now, but we're going to go to the other side of the world, where one man is waging a crusade to protect very endangered rainforest species, which are being gathered by greedy collectors. Yes, it's Punky Nanda Parata, and here's his film.
Sumatra is a special place. It has so many amazing plants and animals. We have species here that cannot be found anywhere else in the world. My name is Punkinanda Pratama and I'm a botanical conservationist. Plants really important to me because they are really special. Without plant we cannot have like fresh air right now. Without plant we cannot seeing so many beauty and color around the world. Because of plants, I got so much happiness I can work with them. I focus a lot of my work on protecting flora because animals can run from destruction, but plants cannot. The biggest threat of a native plant of Sumatra is habitat loss that rapidly happening across the island, and also illegal trade of plants. Even online, it's make a huge damage and also decreasing the population of the plants in the wild. Plant poaching is still happening here in South Sumatra because of demand from outside the country that want more exotic plants from Indonesia, even across the country. And people in the village that need money take everything out from the jungle because they need money and sell online even to another country. That's worrying us about the plant population in the wild. It's really, really bad damage in the wild because of plant in Sumatra is really unique and we need to save them. When I saw the decline of flora, I decided I needed to do something about it. We set up this greenhouse on 2020 and we built this greenhouse because we have a flora conservation project. We're trying to save plants from destroyed land and also from plant poaching. This greenhouse already have a 5,000 specimen of plants, including 350 species of orchids, and it's really good. We can save as much as possible of plants native to Sumatra from local extinction. Here is a Paphiopedilum superbeans, a native plant from Sumatra. This plant is critically endangered and no many left in the wild, but you need to remember this plant are impacted very bad with illegal plant trade. It is sold online everywhere across the globe. That's made me really sad. These are beautiful plants. You can see it's a mottled leaves that have a very gorgeous flower. Is right now threatened by illegal poaching in the wild. After plants like healthy enough, we will bring them back to the wild to make their population stable in the wild. And I'm very grateful this effort can make a difference for plant conservation. As a consumer, we should understand where our plants come from, and without demanding so many exotic plants from original country that taken from the wild, we need to raise awareness about this problem. We should remember, because of plant we have oxygen, because of plant we have a food, and because of plant we have a water. We should remember we depend on them, we depend on nature. We should protect them together.
What an incredible person Punky is, selflessly working to protect the flora in Sumatra. But it's not just flora that he's protecting, it's the fauna too. He's got a camera trapping project looking to capture Sumatran tiger, one of the rarest cats in the world. Now, if he's successful, that information could be submitted to gain further protection for those environments and all the species within it. Now, if you'd like to support Punky and his work, you can do so via a crowdfunder, and the link is below. Now, I'm in a hide, I'm speaking really quietly because I'm trying to capture an animal. So I've got my low light camera here, and outside I'm looking at a wall. What could I be looking at? So I've baited it with loads of peanuts. I've put a good dollop of peanut butter, something with a good scent to try and entice the animal in. So I'll give you a clue. It's a nocturnal animal. It's quite heavily associated with Scotland. It is a mustelid and it's incredibly elusive, but we have managed to find evidence of it here. So Dan Puplet found this earlier. This is a scat. Now it's dark, it's coiled, and I'll do a Chris Packham here. I'll give it a bit of a sniff. Yeah, it's not bad. It's musky. It's actually quite sweet. Certainly not unpleasant. I'm of course talking about a pine marten. Now, the pine martens have been seen here, and the staff at Dundragon managed to capture this footage of a pine marten running around in the daylight, which is quite unusual. It's here at the tree nursery looking for different types of food, and it's amazing to be able to see that, and the bib with those really strong bold markings. Now, those markings are almost like a fingerprint, like for us. We can be able to identify the individual through those different markings. So, have we got a pine marten? No, still no pine marten. Well, whilst we wait, let's talk a bit about the ecology here at Dundragon. So myself and Henry Tamlin went out with our long lenses into the lowlands, where it's covered in loads and loads of trees which attract loads of different species of birds. You've got tree creeper and chaffinch. But there's one tree in particular that's incredibly fruitful at this time of year, and that is, of course, the oak tree. Now, the oaks are producing tons of acorns at the moment, which are attracting jays. Acorns are one of the favourite foods for the jays, and at this time of the year they're busy eating as many as they possibly can, but they're also busy caching them. Now, each year they can cache over 5,000 acorns, which is a huge number, and if they're lucky enough to remember where they all are, that's an incredible resource for them over the winter. But for those that they forget about, well, that's like a seed vector for the oak tree. They will hopefully germinate and then grow into oak trees themselves. But there's another animal at play here, because what also enjoy the acorns are the wild boar that occasionally come in and out of Dundragon. We've got some camera trap footage of the boar roaming around, looking for different food. They're there digging up the ground, looking for bulbs and grubs, and also all of those acorns. Now, they're a keystone species because all of that digging and rooting around is exposing all of this bare earth. Now, all of that bare earth is a perfect place for germinating seeds for trees, shrubs, and wildflowers. So the wild boar and the jay are these kind of ecological engineers, and they don't even know they're doing it. They're just doing their daily business and creating all of this amazing environment for nature to thrive. Now, I should have another look outside. No, nothing yet. But if we do get a pine marten, we'll be sure to cut back and show you. Now, from one elusive species to another, our very own Indie Green.
Thank you very, very much, James, and I really hope you get some good footage for the rest of the time that we are here. Now, let's move on to our soapbox. And this soapbox is something that we really shouldn't be talking about. It should have been dealt with a long time ago, and that's rapt persecution. Now, this is well, it's a massive, massive issue that we really need to tackle because birds of prey are so, so important. They're a top of the food chain predator. They help regulate ecosystems and they're so important for nature and people. Now, birds of prey are still sadly very much persecuted, and this is because of conflicts between birds of prey and land that is used for game bird shooting. And gamekeepers see birds of prey as a threat to their game bird stocks. Now, the latest RSPB Bird Crime Report 2021 was the second highest figures of rapt persecution, and with 108 cases reported of birds of prey that are either shot, trapped, poisoned or went missing under suspicious circumstances. And 71% of those cases are on land related to game bird shooting. Now, I have to remind you all the way through this that rapt persecution is completely illegal, and it has been for some time. It's not a new thing. It has been in action since 1954 under the Protection of Birds Act that raptors are protected under. Now, hen harriers are obviously the poster bird for rapt persecution, and in May of this year, the RSPB released a study stating that young birds, young hen harriers, have an average survival rate of 4 months. Now, this is obviously absolutely devastating for a bird that can normally live up to 10 or 12 years. Now, since 2018, we have very, very sadly lost 110 hen harriers, which is 110 too many. But of course, that is just the tip of the iceberg. A lot of those birds that we know about will have been satellite tagged so we can monitor their movements and find out where they are disappearing. Now, there is no denying the pattern of where birds are disappearing, and this is especially evident with golden eagles. And now, a study published by Mr. Phil Whitfield and Dr. Alan Fielding showed a clustering effect with the disappearances of golden eagles within the Cairngorms that all related to them disappearing on grouse moors. Now, rapt persecution isn't a small issue. It's not the loss of 1 or 2 individuals. It's having a large-scale effect on populations of birds of prey, particularly hen harriers, golden eagles, red kites, and goshawks. But what can we do? So if you find a dead bird of prey, do not touch it. That's the worst thing you could do. It could be poisoned, and of course with avian flu we do not want to get contaminated. All you need to do is report it to the RSPB How to Report Crimes Against Wild Birds drop down on their website. The link for that is in the chat. And of course the RSPB Bird Crime Report will be released later on this year, so please read that and share it widely. It's very, very important that we get this message out as far as we can. And it's also, if you want to keep up to date with the latest rapt persecution cases and news all around the topic, then you'll have to check out the Rapt Persecution UK blog by Ruth Tingate. A really good up-to-date blog with high-quality information that I can highly recommend. And finally, if you want to support the work the RSPB is doing, the investigations team that is, you can support their crowdfunder to raise money for satellite tags of hen harriers. Again, this is instrumental in the cases of when birds do go missing and we can find out what's going on and where things are happening. And once again, the link for that is in the chat. But most importantly, I'm fed up. We're all fed up of this issue. It's gone on for all of my lifetime and so many other people's lifetimes. I'm sick of it. We need the government to start acting. We cannot sit on our backsides watching these hen harriers disappear on our watch. Natural England, Scottish National Heritage, where are you? We need everybody on this. We cannot continue to sit here and watch people shamelessly murder our beautiful, beautiful birds of prey. Sorry, I think we're being interrupted by a party political broadcast.
Is it on this time? It better be. It's not my job that's on the line, son. Hi, I'm Al Goldbloom, Government Environment Spokesman, and I'm exhausted because I've just been putting out the 7 bins that the muesli-munching habitat huggers insist we use. I'm also poorer today than I was yesterday because I've just had to pay my meat tax for a side of beef that wasn't even hormone injected. Every day now, pink-haired poshos and pensioners from Just Stop Oil are trying to block our fundamental right to sit in SUVs in stationary traffic by forcing us to sit in SUVs in stationary traffic. But don't despair. The silent majority are fighting back. We are on your side, and today, with our leaders' backing, I am pleased to announce our new approach to net zero. Net maximum. Earlier this month, the Rosebank oil field got the go-ahead, equivalent to the combined CO2 emissions of 27 low-income countries, and we disbanded the Energy Efficiency Task Force, which means that soon, the only people in the UK provided with adequate insulation will be our donors, against the consequences of climate change. That's right. We've listened to the lobbyists, and we are committed to leaving the planet in a worse condition for our children than we found it, by obstructing renewables, by subsidising fossil fuels, and by burying our heads in the sand. It's time to level up our sea levels. It's time for net maximum.
At this time of year, it's autumn. We all go terrestrial, don't we? We talk about those falling leaves, we talk about rutting stags and fungi thrusting up through the forest floor. But how many of us pay any attention to what's going on beneath the surface of a pond? It's not necessarily the place you want to stick your fingers this time of year because it's pretty chilly, but actually compared to the air temperature, being in the water makes sense. It sort of buffers those temperature changes, and if you're a young invertebrate, or any pond life actually for that matter, it's a good place to be. It's nice and stable. And this is what we're talking about. You could go to a pond near you and see this. I mean, how beautiful are these creatures? Now, these are literally underneath the microscope here. If you have a little look, there's a little dish of them. These are tiny little dots. You'd easily walk past the pond, not give them any kind of thought at all, because those little dots that fizz away in the pond. These are water fleas, or we tend to call them Daphnia. Cladocephorans is their technical term, but they're crustaceans. So what they're doing is all year round, they are filtering the algae out of the pond. You can see their gills, their feeding legs going there, also work as gills. They actually breathe through their legs as well. And they're sucking water into this chamber and filtering out all the goodies. And they do that all year. And they reproduce, well, like water fleas, they produce young by parthenogenesis, so they're all clones of each other. Now, at this time of year, in the autumn, males are produced, and those males mate with the females, and then something really exciting happens. They start laying what you call winter eggs, and you can see them in some of these individuals here. Some of them actually, I mean, that one there's actually got something going on there. I don't think they're eggs at all. I think they're babies, but they will perish as the water gets colder. But these are winter eggs. And as these adults grind to a halt, as it gets colder and colder, these winter eggs will be deposited into the water and they'll sink to the bottom, as will the bodies of their parents. They'll sink to the bottom and become compost to fuel the plants for next year. But these are great little things. And also, if you're really into them, there's 87 species thereabouts in the UK. So if you're a super nerd, you can get into identifying them all. We've actually got 2 species here. We've got, this is the common water flea. This is, I think it's Daphnia pulex. And this one, oh, I can't see it now, it's gone. Well, move on. It's live after all. There's lots of little things zinging around. But anyway, you get the idea. There's loads of stuff to see under the surface. So we're going to move the water fleas over. There's another crustacean. There was a few in that shot. I'm going to show you this one as well. This one, if you're a fan of SpongeBob SquarePants, you will know this little creature here. It's doing the same thing as a water flea. It's another crustacean. This is, whoops. Oh gosh, what have I done? There it is. This is a cyclops. It's a copepod. They're actually evolved in the ocean. You'll see them, they make up, this is what whales feed on. But in our ponds, they do the same sort of job as those water fleas. They're called a cyclops. I'll just sharpen up the microscope a little bit so you can see why. They've got this amazing beady red eye in the middle. And this one here is a female, and she's producing these eggs, which will do exactly what the water flea's eggs do. They'll sink to the bottom, and even if the pond freezes solid, they'll survive until next year. And if it dries up, they'll blow around like dust. In fact, many of these new ponds are colonised by these eggs being blown across into the new waters. So incredible little things, and they are just so beautiful and perfect. Right, talk about beautiful and perfect. What else can we do? Ah, here we are. Now, I muffed up my fact earlier on, but I'm going to give it to you again. If you're going to weigh up all the ducks, all the frogs, all the water beetles in a pond, and all the midges, the insects or the creatures with the biggest biomass are the midges. We tend to think of midges in one way, and that is they're bad, they bite. But actually, most midges don't. Most midges don't at all, and they exist in huge numbers. They're also filter feeders, just like our water fleas. So these are all creatures turning that soup of algae into animal protein. Now, if this isn't your cup of tea, in fact, it's doing it right now. Look at that. Those are the feeding combs, these brushes, got big, very hairy jaws, and they just waft them around and scoop the tiny algal particles out of the water. This is a meniscus midge, by the way. This is one of the non-biting midges, which make up the majority of our midges. A meniscus midge are easy to identify. They've got a great family name as well. They're the Dixids. They're easy to identify because they bend themselves in two. They sort of bend in the middle there, and they sit on the surface of the water, on the meniscus. They stick to the meniscus, and then they stick their head under the surface and feed on that soup, that scum, I guess, that accumulates at the top of the pond. But they're very, very cool little things. And even if you don't like these things, and how could you not, they also turn into a winged insect. These are, to the midges and the gnats, what the caterpillars are to the butterflies. So these will turn into adult insects, and they'll fuel loads of creatures. They'll fuel next summer for you. They'll feed the damselflies, the bats, the swifts and the swallows. These things are really, really important. But that is your meniscus midge. Now, I'm going to be told in a minute whether I've been talking too much, because Lucy's behind me, and
we've got a bit more time.
We've got a bit more time. Okay, thank you, Lucy. I just got to check, because I do go on a little bit. I know that, and who can blame me? Because these things are fantastic. Right, what have we got here? I've even forgotten what I've got. Just to give you an idea, all these things. Do you know what I'm doing? I'm making my life really difficult for myself. There. So there we are. Let's focus on that. That there is a little caddisfly. Let me just turn down the light a little bit. It's a little bit bright. There's a caddisfly larvae, and it's going to come out of its caddis case in a minute. Caddis, by the way, these things are going on all winter. They'll be growing as they get bigger. They'll add new bits of material. There's lots of different species can be identified by the material and the way and design of their cases. But they're called caddisfly after the caddis men in sort of Edwardian times. Oh, there's another one come to join it. You see, they live in these lovely tubes. And the caddis men would sew all these little swatches of cloth onto their coats, and if you wanted to buy one, you'd come up and take it off. And in the same way, our caddis larvae, very closely related to the moths, by the way, sew with silk all these things together to make these incredible, difficult to swallow tubes. So if you're a predator, like a fish, you'd struggle to swallow that because it's got all these sticky out bits. Lucy's looking. I can feel her. I can feel her glare in the back of my neck. Is that my time up? I'm sorry. I've been told I can keep going. Well, I might not have anything else to say. Oh, there's a birch seed. We can talk about that, but we're not going to. Yeah. So there we are. There's your caddis. Again, they're all going on in a pond near you right now. This might be a complete anticlimax because they've all gone to sleep. It's past their bedtime. These are flatworms. After all those water fleas, that's just disappointing, isn't it? But they're actually really, really cool. So if I was to be that cruel, I could cut these all up. They're closely related to the parasites you get in your guts, by the way, the tapeworms. But if you were to cut them up, each portion would genuinely turn into another flatworm. These things, in theory, can live forever. How cool is that? I don't think I've got forever. we still going?
No. I think, we're ready to head back to the
Head back. So I think it's time to head back to the teepee.
Sensational stuff.
Could always have more of Nick.
Oh, the master at work there. What about that? Fantastic microscope, mega big screen, and a peek behind the scenes as well. And if you're interested, Nick's books are in the chat below. Links to get those are in the chat below. Nick, thanks ever so much for coming along. It's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah,
Wasn't that good? Wasn't that good?
But I can't obviously go on without mentioning something about Henry Morris. Now, earlier on we saw his party political broadcast, but I also wanted to bring your attention to his book because he's a fantastic author as well. So this is it, The Diary of a Secret Royal, and it is very, very funny. When you flip through its pages, you will certainly be laughing. It's all about the imaginary ongoings inside the doors of the secretive Buckingham Palace. Imagine what's in there. It's very good indeed. Recommend it.
It is very, very good. I've read it all, actually. It's hysterical. Absolutely hysterical. Fantastic stuff. Well, we're coming towards the end.
We are, aren't we? So come on in, everyone.
Oh, hello.
Right.
Are we all over already? Really?
Well, I'm afraid we are.
Oh, that's Well, I'm going to have to reveal, or we're going to have to find out the answer to our word quiz of the day. So me and Megan had a bit of an idea. We thought maybe it was defecating. Did you guys have any thoughts?
Well, that's along the same lines, I think.
I had a thought because I lived in France for a little while, and le nid or le nid means nest in French.
Oh, right, okay. Well, let's go to Susie then and find out what the answer really is.
Well, my answer to today's teaser, what is a creature doing when it's nidificating? It is building a nest. To nidificate from Latin is to build a nest. And I like to think that's what humans do when they cozy up in a little man-made den. We are...
Fair play, Chris. Fair play. Well done. Well, I can announce that we did have quite a few winners, but the first person, the fastest person off the keys was Angus Monroe. Congratulations, Angus. That was some fast typing. You got that answer in. Nidificating. So yeah, learn something new.
I'm going to be nidificating, I think, at some point. I tell you what, right, what about the mug then? Because we did also set a competition at the top of the programme to win one of the 8 out of 10 bat mugs. There are only 8 of them. They're rarer than Ming vases. We asked you what the tree snot was. Do you remember the tree snot at the top of the programme? Who was the first person to get that? Well, I can say that Sue was quite quick, but not quick enough to beat UK Wildlife, who got it first. Tree snot was, in fact, caddisfly eggs. Whoa. So UK Wildlife, please let us know your address and we'll post this to you in March next year. No, it'll be a bit quicker than that.
Very good. They can use the email address, can't they? 8 out of 10 bats at chrispackham.co.uk. Otherwise, we don't know where you live and your mug will be sent into the ethos of the universe.
Oh, they'll be on Antiques Roadshow before you know it.
Something like that, something like that. Indeed.
Now, we've also produced our pin badges, and I have to say, we've got a demonstration here. Now, look at this. I mean, it's pretty small. It's pretty small. The real ones, I can promise you, if you'd like to order one of these, and again, the link is in the chat, but they will be much bigger. This is just a test pressing. Small enough, Beast, to...
I'm actually deciding to fashion one as an earring.
Look at that.
Oh, look
there
at that.
you go. Look, if you give me the other one, then I'll have 2. So I'll just pinch that, right, and I can have them on both sides.
Well, the rest of us.
And again, as I say, if
one.
you'd like one of those 8 out of 10 pin badges, the link is in the chat. You can order them, and I guarantee they will be larger, and you won't need to use them as earrings or navel piercings or any sorts of piercings. You could hopefully not pierce anything on your body with them. Anyway, whatever, let's move swiftly on.
Speak for yourself. So you've been sending us all the brilliant pictures and clips, and I've got to say I've spied a favourite of mine so far. Now this is one of the coolest things I've seen on Twitter this year. Look at this!
This is good.
So this is a red-tailed shrike. Now this was taken on Fair Isle Bird Observatory by Alex Penn, who's based there, and this is an incredible face-off between a red-tailed shrike and a gold crest. The red-tailed shrike just taking down the gold crest there, while the gold crest on migration. On migration.
It's gone all the way to Fair Isle,
and then it's got
from Scandinavia.
Exactly, then taken down by a bird that shouldn't even be here. The redback shrike, normally found in Central Asia, not round here, but incredible photo.
That is really amazing.
So
now,
cool.
I haven't mentioned anything marine yet this episode. That's something wrong with that. So I've got some incredible images sent in by Josh Pedley. The first one, now this is an interesting, it doesn't look like that much of an exciting photo, does it? This is...
Looks like your bittern feather in cetaceal form.
You need to let it go. This is a Sowerby's beaked whale. beaked whale. Now, beaked whales are this incredible group of cetaceans that are so mysterious. We know so little about them. They're incredibly deep diving, all right? They can dive. The Sour-Bay's beaked whale can go down to 1,500 metres. 1,000, and they spend loads of time at depth as well. It's how we know so little about them, is that they basically spend all their time at depth feeding on squid and feeding on fish. And they come to the surface so infrequently, and they're actually fairly small. They're more like dolphins than whales. So yeah, Josh snapped this out in Cardigan Bay from his base in Newquay in Wales. So I think that's amazing. I think that's incredible.
Okay, can we top that? Well, I'm going to offer you this. It's a slug having a poo.
Lowering the tone.
Look at that. Just imagine how it feels.
From a rare cetacean to a
Squeezing
pooing
out
slug.
all of that digested material. Now, look, you can see the antennae of the slug there. The smooth area behind those is the mantle, which means that it's actually pooing very close to its head through its genital pore, or pneumostome as we call it. Why would the slug be pooing close to its head? Well,
You tell us.
think about it. Slugs are very similar to snails. If these types of animals had their genital pore at the end of their body, they would be pooing into their shell. Now, obviously, slugs have done away with the shell, but that's why they've evolved to have that close to their head, so that when they are snails, it poos out and they don't get it stuck all clogging up their shell.
Wow.
What about that, though? Oh, and one other interesting thing is that poo's really important sometimes for spreading fungal spores around the woodland. You know, when you look at fungal fruiting bodies at this time of year, they're always nibbled by mollusks. I always felt sorry for them, actually, I've got to say. But no, the slugs eat them and then they spread the spores around in their poo.
Well, I'm pretty pleased you said that, because my favourite photo that's come in from the audience is this from Billy McCourt, and it's a fly agaric mushroom which has a symbiotic relationship to lots of different trees. Now, under the surface, you've got this huge network of fungus that interacts with trees in a very particular way. So they wrap around, the fungus wraps around the root hairs of the tree, and they get the sugars that's created through photosynthesis from the trees, and in return they provide nutrients like phosphorus and nitrogen. So it's a really positive relationship. I love a fungus. Great time of year
and then
for
the
it.
slug eats them, and then it moves around, and it poos, and then more hyphae grow. I mean, that's
Circle of life.
just fantastic. Circle of life, all down to poo. Now, where is Nick?
Where's
Nick? Nick's meant to be joining us one. We promised you
Oh,
on social media the best animal in the world.
I'm surprised you couldn't hear us out there.
Oh, look at
She's
that.
been barking at the Tawny Owls.
Oh,
Look at her.
One of the best animals in Dundregan.
Poodle, Juno, come on. What a way to end the programme. Well, actually, we don't end the programme with a poodle. We end it with a joke.
Oh, we do.
And
Are you
it's
ready for
your
my
turn.
joke?
Never.
Ooh. Okay, are we ready? Brace yourself.
Oh.
A weasel goes into the bar. The barman says, "What would you like to drink?" The weasel says, "Pop," goes the weasel. Sorry.
That's childhood memories.
Mine was better.
What do you think?
And on that bombshell,
I tried.
we'll see you again at 7 o'clock on YouTube tomorrow. 8 out of 10
7:30.
bats.
Bye.
Bye.